Last week, I talked about marketing UX within your organization and how you can use internal marketing strategies to build awareness and executive support. This time, I want to dig into a more hands on approach, which is getting your stakeholders directly involved in UX activities. If all my talk of guerrilla marketing and PR stunts felt a bit overwhelming, this is a simpler path. The more you can expose stakeholders and colleagues across the organization to real users, the more user-centered their thinking will become. It really is as simple as that. Now, I know what you're thinking. Do I really want stakeholders hovering around during user research? What if they derail everything with their opinions? And that's a fair concern. But here's what happens when you do invite them in. First of all, it builds their support. The more stakeholders are involved, the more invested they become, and the more likely they are to support UX initiatives when it matters. Secondly, it builds empathy. When stakeholders interact with users, even indirectly, they begin to empathize with their frustrations and genuinely want to improve the user experience. And then finally, it builds relationships. By involving your stakeholders, you get to better understand their motivation and needs, and that will actually influence them to be more user-centric. At the most basic level, you can get your stakeholders trying UX activities yourself. You can sit with them and experience what it's like to do things like card sorting. You can walk them through the process. They can do a card sort themselves. Or you can walk them through something like a usability testing session, and they can act as an observer and watch those kinds of sessions. Then you can teach them how to run these processes on their own, and I've done that countless times. And watching someone run their first usability test session is genuinely rewarding. While all of this may seem obvious, remember that what you're looking to do here is influence others and change culture. And getting hands-on experience is really powerful for doing that. Now, when it comes to exposing your stakeholders to real users, this is where things get really interesting. One technique I use constantly is recording sessions I run with users and then creating short videos afterwards. And these fall into two categories. There's the low-light videos, which I must admit I call horror videos sometimes, are 90-second compilations of all the frustrations and irritations a user has had with the experience. Watching someone struggle, get confused, and in many cases openly curse your interface is deeply uncomfortable and deeply effective at building empathy. And then there are highlight videos, which are the opposite. I use these when I want to show stakeholders how improvements we've made to the system really do work. There is something very powerful about allowing stakeholders to see real users interacting with the system and actually succeeding. Both types of videos work because they get to see real users doing real things, not just persona slides or data points, but actually humans trying to get something done. Circulating these videos to stakeholders and watch how quickly conversations change. You could also invite stakeholders to attend live usability sessions, provide lunch as an incentive. Steve Krug, in his book Rocket Surgery Made Easy, describes a brilliant approach where you run 3 morning usability sessions that stakeholders can observe. You then have a lunch meeting where you brainstorm improvements based on what everybody has just witnessed. Another option is to include users in stakeholder workshops, pay users to attend and provide their perspectives during sessions. And this creates situations where stakeholders interact with the customer in a way that they've never done before. Because think about it, most people in organizations rarely have face-to-face time with customers. Marketers, senior executives, compliance officers, developers, they all operate based on assumptions and secondhand information. Any direct exposure to users can fundamentally shift their thinking. Once stakeholders are interacting with users and believing in the process, they will become advocates, people who influence others within their department and across the organization as a whole. And then you want to build communities of people who care about UX, as I've said before. You want to provide them with tools to promote it, such as branded material or how-to guides that they can share with their team. And remember to reward their advocacy, celebrate those who promote UX best practice, invest time in making them feel valued. I try to publicly recognize people who've championed user experience thinking, even if it's only in small ways. It reinforces the behavior and signals to others what really matters. In essence, we need to involve our colleagues across the organization to help them understand users and become user advocates. Getting people hands-on with real users changes everything. So in the next episode, we're going to look at how to break down business silos because they often hinder user experience and limit the kind of cultural change that we've been discussing.